Lesson 27, the every other row loops. Well, in the last lesson we learned about the step command to move backwards through a loop. Sometimes when we're moving forwards through a loop, we want to set the step to something other than 1, so that way we can, like for example, hit every other row or select every 20th record or something like that. So we'll take a look at some examples here of when we would use step other than when we're deleting rows. So let's get started. Alright, so I have a data set here and I want to color every other row. Now I know in the old Excel we could use format auto format. In this Excel we could use the table functionality to color every other row, but I just want to do it old school. I just want to very quickly color every other row. So let's go take a look at the code. Know that I'm going to figure out where the final row is, and my loop is going to say for I equals 2 to final row, but I want to hit every other row, so I say step 2. And then I have a comment here, color this row red. And then next I. Very simple, tiny little macro. And I'm practically done. I just have one problem. I have no idea how to color this row red. And so in real life, there's a few tools that you have to know in VBA. You have to know how to figure out the final row. You have to know how to set up this loop. But then when you're stuck, well, we just turn on the macro recorder and we record a macro to figure out how to color a row red. So I'll come back here. I'll choose those cells. I'll turn on the macro recorder. Really, I would just call this macro 1, but I'll say, how the heck do I do red? Store it in this workbook. Click OK, go to the Home tab, go to the Paint bucket, choose the red that I want to use, and then stop recording. And then I can come back and look at the macros. How the heck do I do red? We'll edit that macro, and we see that, okay, it's selection.interior, the pattern equals XL solid, pattern color index is automatic, and then dot color equals 255. Well, okay, I don't necessarily have to understand all of that code, but I can copy that code and go back to my code module, then paste that code right into the macro that I've been writing. All right, but instead of using selection.interior, I want to use cells I, comma 1, starting column 1, dot resize 1, 5 dot interior, and let the rest of the code run. So let's take a look here for I equals 2 to final row step 2. I think it's good. I think we can just go ahead and run it. I'll run the macro. You see very quickly we applied that color to every other row. Okay, now I'm going to undo what I just did. I'm going to come over here to Excel. By the way, undo does not work in the macro. After you've run a macro, the undo stack is cleared. So I'm going to paste special formats. Go back to just the regular white. Let's take a look at what would happen if we tweaked this loop just a little bit. If we say we wanted to start in row 3 and step by 3, we're going to color every third row. All right, so you can apply any kind of formatting that you need. The step command is a great way to very quickly skip through certain records. Let's say that you work in internal audit, or you work in the IRS and you have to choose which records you want to audit. Well, maybe we can create a little loop. Sub choose audit rows. And we start out with our final row. And we can say for I equals 2 to final row. And we want to audit, let's say, every 7th record. Step 7. Cells I, comma 6, because column F is the 6th column. Dot value equals audit. Next I. Run that line of code. And you can see that we now have randomly selected every 7th record as an audit record. All right, so lots of uses for this step. It's also useful for when you get someone who set up a spreadsheet that they thought was very nice looking. Here's a product catalog. Very, very frustrating because the data that we want is spread throughout several records. I want that product code, I want that description, I want this price, I want this case quantity, and I want this vendor. So we have to look through 4 different records to get data that really should be on one particular row. Well, we can solve this with a loop that goes through and looks from row 1 down to the final row, catching every 5th record. So let's build a quick loop here. Sub fix ugly data. Again, we start with our final row. And we have a loop that says for I equals 1 to final row, step 5. That way I know that I'm going to hit the first line of each individual thing. Next I. All right, and now I need to rearrange the data. And I'm going to have another variable here called next row. Next row is equal to 1. So I'm going to build out on the right-hand side, starting maybe in column G, all of the data that I need. In cell G1, cells, next row, comma, G is 7, is equal to cells I, comma 2. So we're going to grab the current row, second column, and put that in column 7. Cells next row, comma 8. We're going to grab I plus 1 and column 3. In column 9, we grab I plus 1, actually I plus 2, to grab the price, and that'll be column 3. And then here in column 10, we're going to grab I plus 2 and column 5 this time to get that quantity from column E. And then finally, the last one is in column 11. We're going to grab I plus 3 and column 3 to get the vendor. All right. As I start to think about it, I want to write those not to row 1 but to row 2. That way I can put some headings up there. And as we go through, each time that I find a logical record taking up 5 rows, I want to add 1 to the next row. So next row equals next row plus 1. And then finish our next I. So we'll run this slowly just through the first iteration to see what's going on. So I'll run F8. You'll see that I start to write data out here to the right side of my spreadsheet. There's the complete first record. And then if we run through the loop one more time, now this time I is equal to I is equal to 6, and next row is equal to 3. So we're going to be taking the data starting in row 6 and running it to row 3. Let's go ahead and do that. And then the next time we're taking data from row 11 and running it to row 4, and so on. Let's just go ahead and let this finish. And we end up with a nice sortable data set. Room up here to put headings instead of this very ugly data over on the left-hand side. So when you run into one of these strange data sets, provided it was set up by a computer program that's going to keep the spacing perfect, I don't expect that anyone would have actually went through and typed anything like this. This was probably generated by some system. Well, then you can reliably predict that every 6th row or every 5th row is going to repeat the data, and you can step through hitting the first line each time and build a nice sortable data set over there on the right hand side. Well, there you have it, several different examples of when you would want to use step in your loops. I hope you found this lesson helpful, and thanks for watching.
Looking to advance your career by acquiring new skills? Tired of expensive off-site training programs? Wish you could learn from the best instructors in the industry? Look no further than live lessons. self-paced, personal video instruction by the world's leading technology publishers. Each live lesson comes with a DVD featuring 3 to 4 hours of instructor-led classroom training, sample program code that allows you to work along with your personal instructor, and an example-rich study guide. Live lessons allow you to watch the entire course from start to finish, or navigate directly to any of the individual lessons. You'll literally watch over the shoulder of your instructor as he shows you how to build state-of-the-art applications. Live lessons, the power of the world's leading technology experts at your fingertips. To learn more, visit mylivelessons.com today.